Fatima was just 17 years old, but she already knew how it felt to be different. She lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Most of the children in the town had something in common: curly hair, braids, or thick black hair that their mothers styled every morning. But Fatima was not like the other girls. She was born without a single strand of hair on her head, not even when she was a baby. From the very first moment she could remember, people had laughed at her. They called her names like bald egg or shiny head. Fatima hated these names, but no matter how much she wished for hair, it never grew. Her classmates at St. Paul High School were the worst. They would stare at her, whisper behind her back, and sometimes laugh out loud when she walked past. It wasn't just school. Even at home, Fatima felt alone. Her father barely spoke to her, and when visitors came, he would lock her in her room so no one could see her. It felt like he was ashamed of her. He never said it, but Fatima could tell. Her siblings weren't any better. They teased her just as much as the kids at school, calling her names and laughing when she walked by. But there was one person in Fatima's life who always made her feel loved: her mother. Fatima's mother was a kind and gentle woman who never saw her daughter as different. Instead, she always said that Fatima was special, not because of her bald head, but because of her heart and her intelligence. "Fatima, you are going to be great one day," her mother would say, her voice soft and full of love. "Don't let the bullies or their mean words stop you. You are smart, and you will achieve amazing things." Fatima held on to her mother's words like they were a shield, protecting her from all the hurtful things people said. Even when the bullying at school got worse and her siblings were mean to her at home, she always remembered her mother's advice. That was why she focused so much on her schoolwork. While her classmates laughed and teased her, Fatima would bury herself in her books. She studied hard, reading and solving problems, always aiming to be the best in class. And she was. Every exam, Fatima would come first. Her teachers were impressed by her hard work and intelligence, but her classmates didn't care. To them, she was just the girl with the bald head. Despite the pain, Fatima pushed through. She knew her worth wasn't in her hair or how she looked, but in her mind and her heart. Her dream was to become someone important, to show everyone that no matter how much they bullied her, they couldn't stop her from being great. One day, something happened that would change Fatima's life forever. St. Paul High School received a special invitation to compete in an international school competition. This was a huge event where schools from all over the world would come together to compete in academics, sports, and other activities. The principal of St. Paul High School was looking for the best students to represent the school, and Fatima's name came up. She was the top student in her class and one of the brightest minds in the entire school. But some of the teachers were unsure. They worried that Fatima's bald head might draw too much attention, or that the other students at the competition would make fun of her. But one teacher stood up for Fatima. "She is the best student we have," the teacher said, "and I believe she will make our school proud." And so, Fatima was chosen. For the first time in her life, she was given a chance to prove herself in front of the world. The day she found out, she rushed home to tell her mother the news. Her mother's eyes filled with tears of joy as she hugged her daughter tightly. "I always knew you would make it, my dear," her mother said, smiling brightly. "This is just the beginning." But not everyone was happy for Fatima. Her classmates couldn't believe that the bald girl was going to represent their school. Some of them even tried to convince the principal to choose someone else, but it was too late. Fatima was already on her way to the competition. In the weeks leading up to the event, Fatima prepared day and night. She studied every subject, practiced every question, and made sure she was ready for anything. Even though the bullying didn't stop, she learned to block it out. Her focus was on winning, and she wouldn't let anyone take that away from her. Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Fatima stood in front of the large building where the competition was being held. Schools from all over the world were there, students from different countries and backgrounds. As Fatima walked inside, she felt a wave of nervousness, but she reminded herself of her mother's words. "I am smart, I am strong. I can do this, she whispered to herself. And she did. Throughout the competition, Fatima performed excellently. She answered every question with confidence and solved every problem with ease. By the end of the competition, it was clear who the winner was. Fatima from St. Paul High School. When the results were announced, Fatima couldn't believe her ears. She had won. Not only had she won the competition, but she had also earned a scholarship to study in the United States of America. This was a dream come true. For the first time in her life, people weren't laughing at her. Instead, they were cheering for her. Her classmates, who had once bullied her, were now looking at her with admiration. Even her father and siblings, who had always treated her poorly, began to change. They realized how wrong they had been, and slowly, they started to treat her with kindness. At home, her mother was the happiest of all. She had always believed in Fatima, and now her daughter had shown the world just how special she was. But for Fatima, this was only the beginning. She had proven to everyone that it didn't matter what people thought of her bald head. What mattered was what she believed about herself, and with that belief, she knew she could achieve anything. After the competition, everything in Fatima's life changed. She had gone from being the girl everyone laughed at to the one everyone wanted to know. The students at St. Paul High School, who once mocked her bald head, now treated her like a hero. They congratulated her in the hallways, and some even asked to be her friend. It was strange for Fatima, who had spent so many years being alone, to suddenly have so much attention. At first, she wasn't sure how to handle it. She remembered how these same classmates had treated her before the competition. They had made fun of her, called her names, and made her feel like she didn't belong. Now they wanted to sit with her at lunch, help her with her schoolwork, and even invite her to parties. It was confusing, but Fatima wasn't quick to forget the pain they had caused her. One afternoon, as she walked home from school, a group of girls from her class ran up to her. They were smiling brightly and seemed excited to talk to her. "Fatima, you were amazing at the competition," one of the girls said. "We've never seen anyone as smart as you. We were thinking, maybe you could come hang out with us this weekend? We're having a little get-together and we'd love for you to join us." Fatima smiled politely, but inside she wasn't sure what to say. These girls had never wanted to be friends with her before. They had only seen her bald head, not the person she truly was. Now that she had won the competition, they suddenly cared. "I'll think about it," Fatima said, not wanting to be rude, but also not wanting to rush into friendships with people who had hurt her. As she continued walking home, she thought about the changes happening in her life. She had proven to everyone that she was more than just the girl with no hair. But even with all the attention, there was one thing that hadn't changed: her mother's love. Her mother had always been there for her, through the good and the bad, and now, more than ever, Fatima was grateful for her support. When Fatima got home that day, her mother was waiting for her at the door, a huge smile on her face. She pulled her daughter into a warm hug. "How was school today, my brilliant girl?" her mother asked, her voice filled with pride. "It was different," Fatima said with a small laugh. "Everyone is being so nice to me now. It's strange." Her mother nodded knowingly. "That's because they've finally seen what I've always known. You are special, Fatima. But remember, it's not about what they think of you. It's about what you think of yourself." Fatima smiled at her mother's words. She knew they were true. All her life she had been judged by the way she looked, but now people were starting to see her for who she really was. Still, she couldn't forget the hurtful words, the bullying, and the loneliness. It would take time for her to fully trust the people around her. As the days passed, Fatima focused on the future. The scholarship she had won was an incredible opportunity. She was going to study in the United States of America, something she had only ever dreamed about. It was hard to believe that soon she would be leaving her small town and traveling to a whole new country. At school, teachers helped her prepare for the journey ahead. They gave her extra lessons to make sure she was ready for the new challenges she would face in America. Fatima was excited, but also nervous. She had never been outside of her country before, and the idea of moving so far away from home was both thrilling and scary. One evening, while she was packing her things for the trip, her father knocked on her bedroom door. This surprised Fatima because her father rarely spoke to her, let alone visited her room. She paused for a moment, unsure of what to expect, before inviting him in. Her father walked into the room, his face serious. For a moment there was silence between them. Fatima didn't know what to say, and her father seemed to be struggling to find the right words. "Fatima," he finally began, his voice quiet. "I know I haven't always treated you the way I should have. I was wrong to make you feel like you didn't belong. You've shown everyone that you're special, and I'm proud of you." Fatima stared at her father in disbelief. She had waited her whole life to hear those words from him, and now, here they were. She didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to be angry, to remind him of all the times he had locked her away or ignored her. But another part of her felt a sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, things could be different now. "Thank you, Dad," Fatima said quietly, not sure what else to say. Her father nodded, then awkwardly patted her on the shoulder before leaving the room. It wasn't a perfect moment, but it was a start. Fatima hoped that with time their relationship would heal.